Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Ramana Maharshi, His Life, Chapter 6. Sri Ramana's Steadfastness. Silence is unceasing eloquence. It is the best language. There is a state when words cease and silence prevails. Ramana's disappearance and his parting note were soon noticed. His family was stunned. His mother, Alagammal, who was living in Manamadurai, was informed, and every effort was made to try and find him. But nobody, neither friends nor neighbors, had any idea where he might be. People hoped for his return, but in vain, as weeks and months went by without any news. Alagammal's anguish increased, and she besieged both her brothers in law, Subba and Niliyappa Iyer, to try and find him. It was rumored that Ramana had joined a theatrical troupe performing religious dramas in Trivandrum. Neliyappa Iyer twice went there to look for him among the various tropes, once accompanied by Alagammal but without success. Almost 2 years went by, and people started to believe that they would never ever see the lost son again. On 1st May 1898, Subaiyer died. Neliyappa Iyer and the rest of the family came to the funeral in Madurai. During the funeral, a young man from Tiruchili brought the unexpected news that he had met and had heard him talking about a young Swami called Venkataraman who came from Tiruchili. The Swami was a venerated saint in Tiruvannamalai and was undoubtedly the person they were looking for. Immediately after the funeral, Neliyappa Iyer and a friend started out for Tiruvannamalai. There they learned that the young Swami was living in the mango grove. However, when they went there, they were prevented from entering by the owner of the garden, who said that Ramana was a Mauni, a silent saint, and should not be disturbed. Neliyappa Iyer therefore wrote the following message on a piece of paper for his nephew. Neliyappa Iyer, a pleader of Manamadurai, wishes to have your darshan, and asked Naikar to pass on the message. Ramana recognized his uncle's handwriting. The piece of paper came from a records office and had on the back some official entries in the handwriting of his older brother Nagaswami. From this, he was able to conclude in addition that Nagaswami had become an employee in a records office. He agreed that his uncle should enter. When Neliyappa Iyer saw his unwashed nephew with his unusually long fingernails and his unkempt hair, he was seized by the contradictory feelings of pleasure at seeing him and concern about his physical condition. As he regarded him as a Mauni, he did not speak to him directly but said to Swami and Naikar that it was a great joy to see a family member in such a high state of development. Nevertheless, the welfare of the body should not be totally neglected. His family would certainly have no desire to make him give up his oaths and lifestyle, but they would like to have him near them in Manamadurai so that they could take care of him. He could live there undisturbed as an ascetic and a Mauni at the shrine of a great saint. All his wants would be seen too. Neliyappa Iyer argued and pleaded with all the eloquence of a lawyer, but Ramana did not move and gave not the least sign of recognition. The uncle finally had no alternative but to give up. He sent Alagammal the joyful news that he had found her son, but that he had changed a lot and sadly would not return. Leliappa Iyer himself returned to Manamadurai after 5 days, unsuccessful in his mission. About his two uncles, Neliyappa and Subba Iyer, Sri Ramana later remarked, Subba Iyer had great courage and pride, but this man, Neliyappa, was very meek and mild. If it had been Subba Iyer, he would never have gone back home, leaving me here. He would have bundled me up and carried me away. As I was destined to stay here, my whereabouts were not known so long as he was alive. Neliyappa Iyer, being spiritually minded and mild in his ways, left me here, saying, Why trouble him? From Nagamma Letters, page 358 FF. Later, Neliyappa Iyer visited his nephew twice, While he was living in the Virupaksha cave, Ramana had by then started to give spoken answers to his disciples' questions and to interpret the holy Advaita scriptures. Once, whilst he was in the midst of an explanation about the Dakshinamurti Stotram, his uncle unexpectedly came to the visit and was astounded by his nephew's erudition. From that day on, Neliappa knew that he did not trouble himself any more and returned home deeply satisfied. Soon afterwards, he died. A few months after Neliappa's first visit, Sri Ramana left the mango grove to live in a small temple in Arunagirinathar. He had decided that he should no longer be dependent upon the care of others and that from now he would look for his own daily meal. So he said to Swami, "You go one way, beg your food, and get on. Let me go another way, beg my food, and get on. Let us not live together." But Swami in the evening returned to the Arunagirinathar temple saying, "Where can I go? You have the words of life." Now Ramana felt compassion for him and Swami was allowed to stay with him. After they had spent about 4 weeks during August and September 1898 living in the small temple, they went to live for a week in the quiet upper rooms of the tower of Arunachaleshwara temple and in the Alari garden, one of the temple gardens. There Ramana was again tracked down by admirers. He withdrew from them and went to Pavalakundru, one of the eastern foothills of Arunachala, where there was a Shiva temple, a cave, and a spring. He sat most of the time in samadhi in a tiny room in the temple, which was so small that it was impossible to stand upright. Several times after performing the puja, the priest forgot to see if the Swami was sitting in his room and inadvertently locked him in. His admirers also tracked him down in Pavalakundru. Patiently, they waited until he appeared from inside the temple or the cave to have his darshan. Once the following amusing incident happened. They bolted the door on the outside when they went into town for food, fearing that Bhagavan might slip away. He, however, knew that the door could be lifted off its hinges and opened while still bolted. So, in order to avoid the crowd and the disturbance, he slipped out that way while they were gone. On their return, they found that the door was shut and bolted, but the room was empty. Later, when no one was about, he returned. When no one was about, he returned the same way. They sat telling one another in front of him how he had disappeared through a closed door and then appeared again by means of siddhis, supernatural powers, and no tremor showed on his face, though years later the whole hall were shaking with laughter when he told the story. From Bhagavan Sri Ramana, page 39. In the meantime, Ramana had decided to look for his own food and used to go into town to beg for his meals. About the first time he went begging, he said, "The first day when I begged from Gurukul's wife, he felt bashful about it as a result of habits of upbringing, but after that there was absolutely no feeling of abasement. I felt like a king and more than a king. I have sometimes received stale gruel at some house and taken it without salt or any other flavoring in the open street, but great pundits, scholars, and other important men who used to come and prostrate themselves before me at the ashram." From Mudaliar Day by Day, page 207. When Ramana went begging in the evenings, he used to stand at the doors of the houses and clap his hands. He received the food in his hands and ate it standing on the street. He never took more than 2 or 3 handfuls. He also never entered a house even if he was invited. As the young Swami was by now famous in Tiruvannamalai, and people hoped that he would come to their doors. He used to choose a different street each day to avoid disappointing anyone. Later, he said that he had begged in all the streets near the temple. During the Christmas holidays of 1898, his mother came to visit him for the first time, accompanied by her eldest son Nagaswami, who had a few days off work. They had searched for him They had searched for him in the mango grove in vain. Now they had climbed up to Pavalakundru. Ramana was laying on a rock in a state of neglect such that he was barely recognized, clothed in a dirty scrap of a loin cloth only. 28 months had passed since his mother had last seen him. Bitterly, she complained about his neglected bodily condition and implored him to come home with her, but he did not react. Day after day, they came up to see him, brought him sweets, and entreated him tirelessly, but all to no avail. Ramana remained silent. Alagammal tried everything. One day, when she broke down in tears, he was unable to bear it any longer and simply went away. Once she despairingly turned to others present and asked for their support. Then one of them said to Ramana, "Your mother is weeping and praying. Why do you not answer her? Whether it is yes or a no, why not give her a reply?" Swami need not break his oath of silence. Here are pencil and paper. Swami may at least write out what he has to say. So Ramana wrote down. The ordinaire controls the fate of soul in accordance with their past deeds, their prarabdha karma. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen. Try how hard you may. Whatever it is destined to happen will happen. Do what you may to stop it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is for one to be silent. From Narasimha Swami Self Realization, page 66. Whether this message convinced him deeply religious mother or not, there was nothing left for her to do but to leave him to the life he had embarked upon. Furthermore, Nagaswami's holidays were coming to an end and he had to return to his office. Without having achieved what they had set out to achieve, and with a heavy heart, they returned to Manamadurai. Jai Ramana, Jai Sai Master.